This is the last van build video. I'm always going to be working on this van. It's an endless project. I'm always going to be tinkering on it. Like a year from now, I'm probably going to end up back here and make some changes to it or whatever. But after this video, I'm declaring the van build done. The van is built and I'm hitting the road. The whole point of building this van is so I can go live my life in it. And we're getting there. We're almost there. We're about to be there. Also, this is Theodore Meowsevelt. He was a gift. I call him Theo for short. But I have 2 cats now. It's van life Meow. So I thought it was very important to have spare fuel and a spare tire, you know. And I took a huge road trip in my Buick once and decided to bring a gas can with me. I drove like 14 hours with that thing in the trunk, and by the end of that I was like bombed on fumes. I had a horrible headache and I ended up strapping it to the roof for the rest of the week. So I knew I wanted to mount my spare fuel tank externally, and then after watching lots of like van life YouTube videos, I knew that I wanted to mount my diesel fuel tank externally as well. And I put these jerry cans on my van. I got the idea from one of my favorite people, Andy Rose on YouTube. She made a really good video about using a jerry can for her diesel fuel tank. So I stole that idea and pretty much did the same thing. And when I put these on, they kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, but they've been on here for months now and they've really grown on me, you know. I kind of like the way they look. I'm less than 8 feet wide with these, and the mirrors stick out further than these do, so I'm not too worried about them at all. When I installed these, I believe I said something like, you know, I could just mount a bunch of other crap to my van and be like those overlander guys. I mean, I could go like all full overlander kind of guy and like mount shovels and ladders and recovery boards and shit to the van. So in this video, I become one of those overlander guys. I'm mounting a bunch of crap to my van. Here I've got recovery boards, and they're gonna go right there. I think having more stuff mounted to the van makes the gas cans a little less conspicuous, you know? So these are gonna go here. I got something to go on the other side, and then there's that roof rack that I showed you a couple videos back. I've been working on that. I'll show you what we got going on there. So I didn't actually get this roof rack from the SS United States. That was like a really far-fetched joke that I think appealed to like 2 of you guys. But I did get it from a dumpster. And then I went to my master fabricator friend Tom's shop, and he used all recycled materials to create a masterpiece here. So this is all just garbage, but it's a very functional spare tire mount for my cab roof, because I really have nowhere else to put a 5th full-size spare on this van, unless I just threw it in the back and then sacrificed all of my storage space. So I'll show you exactly how it got to what it is today. I know it looks kind of weird, but I'll explain all of that. And then the next step for me is to get this down and clean it up and paint it and get it ready to mount permanently on the roof. This week on How It's Made, some trash on a guy's van. So I took the van over to Tom's shop. It was raining that day. Took the roof rack and threw it up there and put the tire on it. Immediately hated the way it looked. It's just way too much like a work van with those things sticking up there. So Tom started drawing up some designs. We got measurements off of it. Figured out that no matter what, the spare tire is going to overhang the front bar, just the way that they mount to the van and how big the tire is. But we started coming up with a clever way to secure the tire so it ain't going to go anywhere. So we threw some aluminum in the lathe and started milling it down, drilled out the center. and then tapped it to 3/4, and this is going to be the base that the spare tire hold down threads into. We also decided to connect both crossbars to make it all one piece, just to make it more sturdy and give something for the spare tire to actually bolt to. If it weren't for Tom, I'd just be using ratchet straps. And there's the plug, the finished product. Then we drilled out one of the crossbars that we made out of just some scrap aluminum. Made a hole for that plug to sit into. And it's a perfect fit. He made it where there's a flange on the bottom side and then welded it up. Now we're putting together the center section. We decided to do just 3 crossbars, welding it all together. Having it all connected is going to make the roof rack a lot sturdier. And the center section is complete. Now we're cutting up the mounts from the roof rack, taking off those vertical posts that extended off the top because they were ugly. And we're cutting up the sides where the crossbars actually slid into. And then we're cutting up the remaining pieces to shorten them down. We decided that the roof rack sat up so high the spare tire just looked like it was out there floating in space. Now we're using the mill to grind all the pieces that we cut with the bandsaw to make them all perfectly flat and the same size. Getting everything just super straight. That's the trick to making stuff out of trash, you know. You gotta have a mill and a lathe. See, there's the pieces we cut off from the top that we're gonna repurpose to make the new sleeves for the center section to slide into, making them all the same length and perfectly straight. And Tom's welding them together. So we just cut up the dumpster trash and welded it together to make something nice. Reshaped it. Now here's where it gets real crazy. Tom rigged up this spinny weldy-do here, and he's literally stretching a bolt. He took a 3/4 grade 8 bolt and a piece of rod, and he's making the hold down for the spare. And then he put it in the lathe and took the hex head of the bolt and made it perfectly round. And then even cut a taper into it. And that's the tire hold down. Got 2 handles on the top. And that plate that I'm holding was a motorcycle chain sprocket. And he ground the teeth off of it. That green part, old cutting board. So these recovery boards came with like a mounting bracket and stuff. And they're kind of designed to be mounted on like a rack. Like you see people with them Toyota Tacomas and they have like the bed rack. And they have like the weird fuel tanks and stuff mounted to them and all that stuff and a shovel and whatever. So I'm gonna mount them to the side of my van, which is made out of plywood. So what I did is I took the brackets from them and modified them. So they originally had these funky shaped little like thumb nuts or whatever you want to call them on here. And then on the other side was just another like knob, and it was just a big bolt. So what I did is I went and spent way too much money on metric stainless bolts that were the same threads. I could reuse this portion, And then I bolted them to the bracket with nuts, so they're kind of permanently fixed on there. And then I drilled holes through the brackets inside of those holes, and I'm gonna mount them to my van with basically lag screws. And I got them pretty much lined up where the wall studs are. This guy, he really wants to be on YouTube. He is just nothing but energy. He was approximately 4 weeks old or so when I got him. Someday I'll explain how I got him, but not in this video. But yeah, I've had him since Labor Day. And he's a boy, and he's orange. I've always wanted an orange one. And yeah, he's like the most adorable, awesome little dude ever. I'm dealing with some drama though with my cutie butts. She's 13 and a half, and ever since my kitty poops passed away back in January, she has really embraced being the only child, and she is not very happy about the fact that she's no longer the only child. So we've been working our way through all of that, but this little guy is one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. So there you go. Theodore Meowsvelt. I named him that for obvious reasons. And I think because he was about 4 weeks old when I got him on Labor Day, I believe he is a Leo. So he's Theo the Leo, which is pretty fitting. And this, of course, is Cutie Butts. She hasn't really been on my channel a whole lot. If you're one of my Patreon supporters, you've seen all my cats, but she's 13 and a half. She's definitely not cut out for van life. She hates riding in the car, and you know, this is gonna be a big change for all of us, but she's gonna be just fine. She can't live without me, and I can't live without her, and she really has nowhere else to go. My mom's got her hands full. She can't take her, and yeah, so 2 kitties. We'll see if we can all exist together in a 60 square foot van. I made a video when I first moved into the van showing everyone like all my stuff and how I'll be living with my cat, and I got like crucified in the comments by several people about the cat, and people kind of seemed surprised that I was like intending on bringing a cat with me on the road, and I don't know where the confusion was there. This is van life, meow. But if you're typing up a comment right now about what I'm doing wrong or why I shouldn't bring my cats with me on the road, then just save it. My cats are gonna be fine, so don't you worry. So for this recovery board deal, as I was explaining here, I modified the bracket. I got stainless metric bolts here with the thumb screws that came with the recovery boards. And the way that these work is these go like so, and then you screw these guys on here. And there's, you know, 2 brackets. I'm gonna mount them right here. I've already marked out the holes. I've been working on this behind the scenes and haven't been filming it like a good YouTuber. So that's where we're at here. So the next step is I'm gonna drill pilot holes, just like 1/8 inch or something, because lag screws are, you know, this is plywood, so I'm not really worried about splitting the wood, but it just helps so it doesn't blow out when you screw the stuff in. But I've got 2-inch stainless lag screws, so they don't leave like stains running down my van. But hopefully I'll never need these recovery boards. They're more or less for looks, but that's how I'm mounting these. I think they'll be just fine there, and they'll kind of just add to the whole overlander theme of the van. At the risk of having poor lighting in my video, I am going to put out my awning. Every day from about 1 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, this van just gets baked by the sun because just the way that it's parked and the location that I'm in. But putting the awning out makes a huge difference. It is kind of breezy today, but I've really gotten the hang of using this awning. It's like one of my favorite things I've done to this van. I didn't think I'd use it as much, but I have, and I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna do this bracket first. Drill pilot holes. I'm only doing 2-inch lag screws, which probably won't make it into the interior wall stud, which isn't ideal for mounting these recovery boards, but I risk puncturing things if I go too far. So on this side, opposite of this wall, is like my whole power system. My batteries are like right here, and you know, fuse panel and everything. That would be really bad. And then on the other side, where I'm going to mount the other thing, is my water tank. So you know, we're just gonna do the best we can here with all of this. I'm gonna space the back out with a nut, so that way they're like the same, you know. Just a little extra, just to keep the bracket from like warping or flexing. All right, that's pretty good, actually. Pretty confident that these aren't gonna just fall off. These boards weigh like nothing. I mean, got maybe 10 pounds here. All right, so here's what I'm gonna kind of do, is just stick one up there on that bracket and then see, do I love it or hate it, for one, and then also how straight does it look, like where I marked the holes. I think a little up, a little higher. All right, yeah, that's where I marked these holes by eyeballing it, and then I took measurements down from these bolts and marked these holes. So I did go a little higher on that. So I think I'm safe to go ahead and just get in there with it. I should probably have put some quad or something on there too. I guess it's not too late to do that, but yeah, I should probably do that, actually. Let's do this right, you know? I frickin' love this Quad Max, by the way. No affiliation, obviously, but I was buying that Chinese seam sealer, automotive style urethane seam sealer, and it's good stuff, don't get me wrong. But the Quad is, I think, just as good, really. I mean, it's not an automotive product, but I love it, and it's just a little bit It's not, it doesn't turn yellow. That Chinese seam sealer turned yellow, which I didn't really care for. It's intended to be painted over. And the quad's more, it just stays white. First thing I used it on was that UFO that I put on the roof, and yeah, if I have to make repairs to my van that require sealing something on the outside, I will be looking for the Quad Max. See, these I'm not going to take all the way out, because you lose your grip when you do that, when you take a screw out of wood. So I just backed them off, and I'm going to get the quad in there. I mean, you'd have to like be in a car wash for any water to get through here, but just to protect the plywood of the van a little bit, you know. All right. I've left these a little loose so I can adjust on them, because these holes are slotted. But should be able to stick these on. They stack on top of each other. There's two of them. Oh yeah. I mean, straight enough. Maybe pick up on this back side just a little bit. Yeah, these are funky, but you know. It just adds to that whole off-road appeal to the van. To this rear wheel drive. Open rear differential van that I got here. Yeah, I'm a poser. I put all-terrain tires on my 96 Buick Park Avenue, and a roof rack, and fog lights, and a light bar. So I think that's cool, actually. I took that thing to Moab on Easter Jeep Safari, and people were digging it. Me and my brother stayed the night at this really cool little motel, and a bunch of the Jeep guys were there, and he's like, dude, Gambler 500. There. Hey, that looks pretty good. Not too shabby. And before I take this thing down and paint it, this is merely a consideration at the moment, but clearly I have no reserve with how obnoxious my van looks. I feel like adding these on the side might just make the roof rack a little more complete looking. Still seems like the spare tire's just kind of out there in space, you know. And in the last video, if you watched it, I did run a trigger wire up under the hood for a relay for accessories such as this. And I could very easily do like an LED light bar along the front of this roof rack. But I kind of feel like those are out of style now, you know. This seems more, I don't know. Classy is definitely not the word I'm looking for, but yeah. These are 123 watt LED off-road lights, and I have a 10-pack of them. They were super cheap, but I actually am not too disappointed with the quality of these. Those fog lights I bought for my front bumper are kind of pretty much trash, but these seem like not too bad. They're kind of a nod to the old KC highlighters, you know, the old school. Old trucks from the 70s and 80s with headache rack on the back with a bunch of lights on it. Again, we're Overlander theme here. Poser. I have a 10-pack of these, but I think 4 is sufficient for up here. I'll admit, I don't hate the way this looks. This is probably gonna be a thing. I bought the lights, you know. Smoke them if you got them, you know. I don't even like driving at night. These are just literally just for looks. Who knows? I'll be at camp, be like, what was that noise? Catch some wildlife in action. Obviously, I'm not mounting these with zip ties. This is just for mock-up purposes here. All right, let me know in the comments, yay or nay. But by the time you see this, I'll have already installed these. So. My friend Tom, though, man, look at these welds. For taking the dirtiest aluminum ever that I literally dug out of the ground and frickin' laying a stack of dimes on it like that. If it weren't for him, this roof rack would be ugly, and I probably would have used a ratchet strap to mount my tire with. So, I mean, and if you've been watching me build this van, then you've seen how amazing of a job he did on the bumper and the solar mounts. I'm very lucky to have a friend like Tom. Just took this whole van project to another level. And we both had fun doing it. I mean, I've known Tom for like 20 plus years, and this is probably the most we've ever hung out doing this. So I'm cleaning it, and I'm gonna hit it with some primer. And the smartest color to paint this would be white for heat purposes. But I'm gonna paint it black for cosmetic purposes. But I do have a white vinyl spare tire cover, and special thanks to Larry for gifting me that. I really appreciate that. It was on my Amazon wish list. Because having a spare mounted flat on the roof like that, it would be getting baked by the sun constantly, and it would get destroyed. The rubber would get, you know, dry rotted. Another thing too is if you plan on mounting a 31-inch all-terrain tire to the roof of your van, you're gonna have to do push-ups like daily. I do intend on rotating that tire every time I rotate my other tires, like mix it in. So every, we'll say, I guess pretty much whenever I change my oil, so like every 3,000 to 5,000 miles or so, I'll rotate my tires and I'll mix that spare in. That way, if I ever do need the spare, I won't have a tire that has like, you know, half of an inch of tread more than the rest. Because that would cause the van to, like if it was on the front, for example, that would cause the van to pull one direction or another. Just like when I painted my mirrors and stuff, it's like way too breezy out here. With this adjustable tip, I got it on setting 1 though, which is like freaking power wash. Alright, I let the primer dry for about 3 or 4 minutes. Now I'm going to hit it with some Rust-Oleum Satin Black. It doesn't have a picture of a tractor on it, but, you know, I've reached the point of using up all the materials that I already have and trying not to buy much else. I thought I heard an owl, and then I realized it's my own breathing. Uh-oh. One of my cans of Rust-Oleum plugged, and I didn't have enough to do the job, and I was kind of irritated that I'd have to go to the store and buy more. Then I found this from 2004. It works. Probably won't match. It's a high gloss. Seems to be more of a brownish black than a nice black like the Rust-Oleum, but this is aluminum, so I'm not worried about rust, you know. Definitely doesn't spray as nice, but now I don't have to waste 45 minutes going to Menards and stopping and getting a fountain drink and looking at cat food and, you know, all of that. Plus it's like 4 o'clock on a Monday, so rush hour. Also, these little guys, you see that? Through all the hair. These little bastards hurt. Oh, no-see-ums or whatever. They're bad this year. It's like, seems like they only come out when somebody harvests a soybean field. But it's definitely a Midwest fall problem. While I've been waiting for the spray paint to dry, I went ahead and installed my power adapter for my network switch, because it just came in the mail. And I ran the ground for the fuse block. Had to go to Home Depot to buy this. Menards does not sell wire by the foot, and Lowe's is doing away with their selection. So got all that done. The only thing I haven't really hooked up over here, other than the Ethernet cables, which is my next thing to do, is the like safety neutral wire, like the I got struck by lightning wires. There's supposed to be one on the charge controller and one on the inverter. And I did buy some 8-gauge green wire for that, but it would be a huge hassle to run it down to the frame of the van. So I'm kind of leaning towards just forgetting about that, but I mean, I should hook that up. I probably will get struck by lightning at some point. All right, the 21-year-old spray paint is dry. Looks terrible. I got some sticky, foamy stuff on the ends here to protect the roof. Just some stuff I had laying around. It's funny, it was nice and quiet out here like 2 minutes ago, and as soon as I turned the camera on, like all the neighbors came out. I am going to wait until morning to mount the tire, just because the spray paint's still fresh. You know, I don't want it to like stick to the tire too much. It will eventually, no matter what I do, but and I probably should have washed the roof prior to doing this. Parking under this tree, man, the birds have been crapping all over my van, and that's okay. It'll rain eventually. Let nature wash my van. It's not like the best fit for this roof either. It's like a universal roof rack. It's definitely made for a van. I don't know if Econolines have different shaped rails on their roofs, or if it's all the same crap, but I mean, it works, but it's not like a super perfect, like made for this kind of design. But I drove here from Tom's shop with the tire up here, and it stayed put, and I mean, I got up there and like jumped around on it with the tire and made sure it's definitely secure. So it's got two nuts or two bolts that cinch it together like this way, and then it has one that pulls it up that way. Skeeters are coming out. They have been bad lately. I am frickin' tore up. I look like a frickin' some kind of leper. Get off me, you bastard. Start with this guy. Try to tighten them all evenly, like it's a frickin' head gasket or something. That is on there. That's good. Yeah, black was definitely the right choice. Just for looks, you know, way better. Yeah, we can go try to get it back. We can go about that far back with it. Yep. Make sure I put it on right. Okay, yep. Ah! Gravity's strong today. think this thing's good, not going nowhere. Bolts are pretty tight. It's cinched on there as good as it can be. It's got a horribly crappy black paint job now. Perfect. This is absolute genius right here. And it's all recycled parts. Tom took a 3/4 inch bolt, cut it, welded it to a piece of rod that was about the same diameter. He put it through his lathe. And then he took the head off of the same bolt and threw that in the lathe, drilled it out so it fit over the rod, welded it to the rod, and then put it back in the lathe and turned it so it was round and put a taper on it. And then welded more rod up here at an angle to make a T-handle. And this is a motorcycle chain sprocket that he was able to put in the lathe and actually grind the teeth off of it, which we were both surprised that worked. And then he took a piece of just some more scraps that was square, and he made that into a circle, welded that to this. Look at them welds. Basically made this entire hold down assembly from scratch, from scraps. And this is literally a cutting board that he cut up in his bandsaw and then drilled a hole in it. Took the time to like chamfer the edges and all that and deburr it and make it all, it's like the perfect, super nice spare tire hold down. Like I said, if it weren't for Tom, it would just be ratchet straps, but this is pretty sweet. Huge thank you to Larry for this spare tire cover. It's a little dirty, actually. That's my fault. But this is going to protect the tire from sun, UV. It's a really tight fit. They came in different sizes, and the one I put on my Amazon list was for up to 31 inch tire, which is what this is. But that's what you want, especially when it's up here, you know, on top of the van. At highway speeds, this thing has to not blow off. But it's it's just vinyl, waterproof vinyl. And then it has like a bungee that secures it. Definitely gonna wash my van like one more time before I hit the road. There's a lot of bird poop on these solar panels. Being parked under this giant maple tree for weeks now. There we go. So yeah, thanks Larry. Thanks everyone for your support. I appreciate all these things. And there's my spare tire solution for the box van. Again, I saw this. I looked to see if there was a video where he explained this, but he didn't. At least not that I saw. But Brian, Adventure Van Man, he did this to his U-Haul box van that he had for a few years. Still has it, but now he's driving an Astro. But yeah, spare tire mounted on a rack on the cab roof. Perfect spot for it. Well, hopefully in the comments you all said hell yeah to the lights, because I did. I remember from taking the van apart to do the paint job that right here under the weather strip for the door and the windshield trim, there's the perfect spot to run a wire down the A-pillar. So that's the plan, because then I can get the wires into the engine bay without poking any holes in the van. I'm gonna do a 16 gauge down both sides and then get them to like come together in the engine bay somewhere. And tie into a relay. And then I'll run it off of a switch on the dash. Simple as that. Just pops out right down here under the cowl. Couldn't be any easier than that. Up here where it's exposed, I'll probably wrap it with some black heat shrink tubing, just for a slim kind of low profile look. I wouldn't do like split loom or nothing up here. When I did my command center on that plexiglass and I ran that piece of split loom across the right there, what I should have got is that like braided wire wrap stuff. That would have probably looked a little nicer, but I'm happy with it. But yeah, I'm gonna wire these up. I'll show you how I do that under the hood, and they just kind of complete the look, you know. I think without them, the spare tire just was kind of, I don't know, out there on its own, kind of looked like it was just kind of hovering in space. And without the spare tire or the lights, with just this roof rack on there, the van had kind of like a flat top Duke Nukem looking haircut. So, all right, I got all the wires ran, got it in some split loom, everything for the fog lights and the floodlights, spotlights, whatever those are. Got them all over here. I need to install a relay for the roof lights, we'll call them. But first I'm gonna pull the battery out and the battery cables for the van and upgrade everything. I'll show it all to you, and then I'll show you what I'm plotting and scheming on doing here. All right, so here I've got the main positive cable from the van, and running down to the starter, this is 4 gauge. And then these two are 6 gauge. And when they get to the battery itself, they get like tinier. I don't know if that's still 6 gauge and it's just thinner insulation or what. This one here is the charge wire from the alternator. And then this super long, like frickin' 10-foot long guy right here goes over to the fuse block. It's the main power for everything else in the van. So what I'm gonna do is replace all of this with 2-gauge. I've got some nice copper 2-gauge wire. It's the same stuff I bought for my main battery cable for the back of the van, except I used 1/0 back there. This is 2 AUG. So upgrading the size of everything significantly. And that's gonna just give the alternator maximum charge power, no voltage drop, you know. And then the ground going from the battery down to the engine is 4-gauge. And then it has a grounding strap that runs off of the same bolt down there to the frame. And then up on the battery, there's a body ground that's tiny. It's 8-gauge maybe. I can't get that ground off unless I remove the AC compressor, which seems excessive just to upgrade the wire one size. And it's in pretty good shape. So what I'm gonna do is leave that, but run an auxiliary 2-gauge ground from the engine to the frame, and I'm replacing the body ground with a bigger one too. And what I'm gonna attempt to do, right over there where the battery mounts on the inner fender, I'm gonna mount these 2 bus bars. They're the same brand as the ones I have in the back of the van, except they're smaller. They're 4 stud, and then they have a bunch of small screws on them. Distribution blocks, you know. So then off of that, I can run all of my accessories, the DC to DC, the winch, the floodlights and the fog lights, and whatever else, whatever relays or anything else I want to run off of the van battery. All right, here's the new alternator wire versus the old. This is the new starter cable. It's not going to be that long, but this section is. All right, this is done. So here we've got all the positives. Here we've got all the negatives. This is the relay for the roof lights. And here's a fuse for that. And then over here is the relay and the fuse for the fog lights. And then I've replaced everything I could with the thickest cable that I could. Running directly off the battery is the engine ground and the starter wire, and then I have a positive and negative running over to the bus bars. And then the alternator goes directly onto the bus bar, as well as the main fuse block for the van. And then this is the DC to DC. I got my fuse holder right there. And over here we've got a ridiculously overkill 2-gauge body ground. That was like a 6-gauge wire originally. We've got that running directly to the bus bar. And all the little circuits are tapped into these little, you know, little screws on the bus bars. And I got the starter wire down there with the Kevlar wrap on it, all hooked up. And then I ran auxiliary grounds from the engine to the frame, and then from the frame to the body. So I left the original grounds down there and added more grounds because this here is the original engine ground. I couldn't get the bolt out unless I took the whole AC compressor off, And this was actually in good shape. I just ended up putting a new end on it. I decided to leave that alone and then just add extra grounds to make sure I'm getting as solid of a connection everywhere on the van as possible. And the split loom that was on the original crap did not fit. I did reuse some of it on the starter cable, and then wrapped that with the Kevlar. But up here, it's got 105C insulation on this wire. This is silicone. So I think that's going to be just fine up here on top of the engine. It won't like get too hot or nothing, so I'm just going to leave that how it is. It's not near the exhaust or anything like that. So this is all done. All I need to do is put all my covers on everything and then install the battery. And I've got brand new bolts for the battery. Of course, it's GM side post. They started doing that, I think, in like 1985. Most people hate them, and the reason for that is the bolts strip out, but they purposefully make the bolts a softer metal than the battery terminals. That way you do strip the bolt out rather than trash a whole battery. And then also the stock cables, the way that they're like sheathed, they corrode easily. So these are like, I can just look at them and tell if they're corroding or not, and I can clean them. And then over here, this is the new cable. I used the black because this is a really long run of wire, and I had more black than red, so. But I put red heat shrink on the ends, so there's no confusion there. But this one here, this is a 6-gauge wire, and it goes from this fuse block to the one under the driver's seat, like the secondary fuse block. And I just put a new end on it because there was a lot of corrosion right here on this fuse. So I just cleaned it up and put new ends on it and cleaned all this up. So I'm not gonna go through all the trouble to replace this wire. That just goes to the other fuse block. This is the main fuse block for the van, and I've got the thickest cable I can put on it. So the van pretty much at this point has the most robust wiring possible. I could have went with 1/0, but this is definitely more than enough with 2-gauge. So, and of course I put paint lines on everything so I can quickly tell if anything has loosened up. I'm still going to be checking these periodically. They can loosen up just from expansion and contraction, but I can look and easily see if the nuts have backed off at all. I've got everything like really tight, but just something I like to do. Got the covers on everything. I put a little dab of black RTV right there on that hole, because that's the wheel tub. So to keep water from splashing right on that fuse block. But, yep, this is all I gotta do is install the battery. I had some extra wire, so I upgraded the Buick too. I get all my batteries from Costco, or have been for years now, because they're like $100. And this one came with the van, and it doesn't have a date on it. But I haven't, I decided to not replace it for no reason, because it's fine. I mean, last winter, I kept my van parked outside the shop for months, and the only driving I would do is to start it up and pull it in or out of the shop, and it did just fine. And looking at it, it's not all swollen or anything yet that I can tell. It seems to be okay. So I'm just going to roll with this one until I have issues with it. The batteries at Costco are interstate, but I think they're a lower, like they're more of an economy version, and this is probably better than, so it's like I could go spend $100 and replace this with a probably not as good battery, or just keep this one for a while, save my money, and then someday, you know, I'll probably end up having to jump start my van, and then I'll go find me a Costco. The side post terminals on GM batteries are 3/8 by 16 thread, so you just get like a 3/4, 3/8 bolt. You know, that's what I'm gonna do. Alright, so I used stainless bolts, which is ideal for corrosion, and I cut them down to about 5/8 length. 3/4 is too long, and 1/2 inch works if you're not running a lock washer, which I am. So about 5/8. It's pretty specific, but everything's hooked up, and yeah, all set. The van is wired. I'm greasy and I'm mad. Here's why. Back in July, I took a week off of work and did a ton of stuff to my van. I made a bunch of videos, whole mechanical overhaul. One of the things I did is I replaced the steering pump and all the steering lines because everything leaked. Originally, I bought the pump from Rock Auto. I got a refurbished one, and it had like an excessive amount of play in the shaft. So I returned that, and then I went to O'Reilly and got a refurbished one. Figured out it's about the same price, and I cannot get it to quit whining. I've bled it and checked for leaks, and I ended up putting some Lucas in there, and it just will not, it whines, it's loud, and it's frustrating. So I just pulled it out. The reason I didn't post the video that I made of me doing that steering pump is because it was like, I was struggling. It's not a super like complicated job, but it's not easy or fun. It's super messy. I had a hard time filming it too. It was like 1 in the morning. You know, if this was like Discovery Channel, it would have been a good video, you know, those guys that just fight and throw wrenches, but just trying to do like a demonstrative kind of informative video about it, I just scrapped that. But I just pulled the pump out, and on my receipt it says limited lifetime warranty. So what I need to do now is take the bracket and the pulley off of this pump and go up to O'Reilly and try to exchange it. It's not fun. It's only 4 bolts, 3 hoses, and the pulley, but it's just, So I'm gonna get this pulley off of here and run up to O'Reilly. I guess I'll show you now what I'm doing, since I'm in a little bit better of a mood than last time, believe that or not. See all the metal flakes? So the reason I didn't buy a brand new pump is it's $100 for this or $300 for that. Should I have? Yes, definitely. And because this pump was bad, and it's the one I'm getting is from the exact same place, if the next one is bad and they're all just bad, then I'm really gonna be happy. But we'll just see what happens, you know. Sometimes you get a dud. What they do with these is they take the pump body and the shaft and the parts that can be refurbished. They like sandblast them, clean them, whatever, and then put all new seals. This reservoir, typically they reuse those too. They just sandblast them. And one thing that's I think the hardest part is one of the front bolts. You can't really get it out with the pulley on. I think the way it's really supposed to be done is you remove and install the pulley in the vehicle. But the cheap Harbor Freight steering pump pulley removal tool that I have, it's not possible to do that in the vehicle. You have to have it like right here, what I'm doing now, in this teeny tiny little bench vise. But yeah, one of these bolts is just, you get to them through the pulley, and one of these bolts is, you just got to sit there with an open end wrench and work at it. But what I got here is like the crappiest, cheapest Harbor Freight like freaking $10 steering pump tool that I've had forever. It's probably not this way for every, like, all GM pumps do not come with the pulley. You have to do this every time, but I'm sure that's not the case with all vehicles. But so what you get with this thing is you get these little anvils and this sleeve and this like puller tool. And what you do is there's like a little I don't know what you even call it, little collet on the end of the pulley. You get your puller thingy over that and slide the sleeve over that, and then you basically hold this still while you back this off, and that pulls the pulley off. I bought this steering pump removal thingy like eons ago, and I've done like 20 steering pumps with this thing, all using the same part because they're all GM Saginaw steering pumps, because GM is like all I've ever owned, but for the most part. But this tool is like, last time I used it to install this pump, I was like, yep, this is the last time this thing's ever getting used, because it's pretty beat. And you got to put a pretty good amount of force on the parts to press the pulley off. You can buy the pumps without the reservoir, but I don't trust myself to put a reservoir on a new pump and not have it leak, so I always just buy the one with the reservoir on it. Normally you'd have just a fill cap here, but on these Chevy vans there's just a hose that runs up to a remote reservoir. So really you have like 2 reservoirs. And because these vans have Hydro Boost, they take a ton of steering fluid, like a whole quart. You also use the same tool to install the new pulley, and I guess I'll show you that when I go to do that here. Hopefully O'Reilly doesn't give me any BS for it. I'm sure they won't. The pump worked, but it was really loud, and you know, this is one of them things I definitely would rather do right here, right now, than, you know, in a parking lot somewhere as a nomad, and you know. All right, I just left O'Reilly, got my new steering pump, no questions asked. Hopefully it's just that one that I had and it's not all of them, you know, but we'll see. Also, I realize I've been kind of negative in this video, and you know, I'm sorry. I'm actually pretty grateful that I have the ability to do this kind of shit myself and not spend thousands of dollars on shop fees and all of that. So, you know, it's just a little setback, and it's a pain in my ass, but you know, it's not the end of the world. So if you do want to replace your steering pump, you need to get a pulley, puller, and installer tool. On the back they come like this. There's these 2 plugs you remove, and you put your bracket from the old pump on it, with these two studs. Make sure you take all these parts off your old pump before you give it to the parts store for a core, you know. And then you remove the upper radiator shroud and all that, like I showed you guys. And then there's 3 15mm bolts on the front of the pump behind the pulley. You can get to 2 of the 3 easily. One of them you have to get under the van, kind of work at it with an open-ended wrench. And then there's a 4th bolt on the side of the, like behind the pump. It goes into the side of the motor on this bracket here. Bracket goes on like that. These are also 15s. And then there's 2 rubber hoses with clamps. I replaced mine with Jubilee clips. And then there's 1 hard line on the back, and that's a 16mm. At least mine is. I think it all depends on what brand you buy and all of that, but so it's not like a complicated job. It's just really messy and difficult and kind of hard on the hands, you know. And then what I found works best for me is if I put the pulley in a vise. And you gotta be kind of careful so you don't mess the pulley up, but then I just let the pump kind of float freely behind the pulley. And then I pull it and install it that way. And then for at least the tool that I use, you put the same stud in the pump, but this time, instead of using these anvils and this sleeve and all of that, you get this bearing. It's just a little bearing and a washer on there. And you just kind of put that on there, and then you put this on there, and you just crank it the opposite way and it presses on. And when this bottoms out at the end of the shaft of the pump, that's how far you want to go. Like when the pulley is flush with the end of the shaft. Because you can press it further than that, but to get the right belt alignment, that's what you do. All right. I can't really show you installing the pump. I tried to film this before, but it's just really hard to... I even did GoPro on the head, and it still was like banging into stuff, and the lighting is terrible, so... You see the 1 bolt that's still in there? Right there? That's the one. You gotta kind of like hold the pump up from underneath, laying under the van, and kind of wiggle it around while you get that bolt on with an open-ended wrench. Then you can put the other 2 in easily, and then there's 1 back over here on the side. Well, I've got the van teeter-tottering on this bottle jack on some 2x4s. Seems safe enough. And this jack's actually what I'm deciding to bring with me on the road because it takes up no room and it can lift the van. Alright, steering pump number 3 is installed. The lawn crew just pulled up next door, so it's going to get loud maybe. The big idea with jacking the van up is so I can turn the wheels left to right without having a ton of load on the steering system. because that's how you bleed the system, get all the air and stuff out, get the fluid everywhere it needs to be. So the biggest issue I could potentially have here is there was metal shavings in the pan when I emptied out the old pump. So some of that's probably still in the system. Hopefully it doesn't trash the new pump. But it'll probably sound a little whiny at first, but once I turn the wheel a couple times, it should quiet up. That's generally how that works. So as soon as I turned on my van, the stereo did a Bluetooth pairing request with my phone and it quit filming video. So that's sweet. I fired it up and it's nice and quiet and makes no whining noise at all, and it's fine. My last steering pump, when I first fired it up, it was extremely loud. Like, that should have been my red flag right then and there. And I think I still have that footage. I'm gonna overlay it now. So yeah, I had a bad pump. It happens, but now it's fixed. You know, I'll know for sure after I drive it around. I'm going to my friend Tom's shop tomorrow to finish the van, but yeah, this was a success. All right, so I need a ladder so I can get on my roof and clean my solar panels or service them or whatever. A lot of RVs have ladders like permanently mounted to the back of them. I could have done that had I not built that trunk thing on the back of my van. If you get on the trunk thing, you can like get a pretty good access to most of the roof, but I need a ladder. I decided to get this collapsible ladder, and thank you, Bonnie, for purchasing this for me off of my Amazon wish list. I appreciate it. This is like a $70 ladder. It's 8.5 feet. The van is like probably 10 feet tall altogether, but this thing is sweet. You just pop these little levers here, and then it's like an extension ladder, and then you can get on the roof. That's really all I need, you know. It works. Oh yeah, my solar panels are filthy. Birds have been pooping on them. So that's the solution for that. I haven't actually used this until just now, but yeah, this thing's awesome. So thank you, Bonnie. But what I'm thinking, because now that I'm not running a cargo carrier hitch thingy this takes up a lot of room in my storage. And I thought, would it really be like that far-fetched or ridiculous if I just kind of mounted my ladder to the side of my van? I mean, this thing is all aluminum and plastic. And, you know, those Overlander guys, they all have whittle ladders on their rigs. So why don't I just mount my collapsible ladder to the side of my van right there? And that would like kind of balance everything out, since I put those recovery boards on the other side. So go ahead and make fun of me for this, but this is what I'm doing. And I don't think it looks that bad. I also have shovel mounts that I bought a really long time ago, like over a year ago. and I was gonna put a shovel on top of the trunk on the back of the van. And then I decided that was stupid, and I don't really even need a shovel. I have a tiny little foldable camping shovel, and that's all I'm gonna bring with me. Plus, that would just give somebody something to take and use to break into my van with. But anyway, I came up with an idea on how to mount this ladder, because these bottom legs, these posts here, these feet, whatever they are about 2.5-inch diameter. So by taking 2 different styles of exhaust clamp in 2.5-inch diameter and some stainless lag screws, I can make ladder mounts, where all I would need is 9/16, I believe, socket to remove my ladder. And then right here, there's actually a nice little groove in these, which is perfect for that. The idea is this. So, something like that. I think that is not ridiculous at all. And I'm doing it, so there you go. That is not ridiculous at all, you know? It looks like it was made for it. It's just a regular old RV accessory thing. I like it. And it freed up a ton of room in my storage for me, so. And then on this side, we got the recovery boards. Yeah, Overlander guy. It's about 4 days later. I went to my friend Tom's the other day. I didn't film much because it was raining a lot and excuses and stuff. But we got the Starlink mount. Check this out. It's all custom aluminum like everything else. This piece here I bought on Amazon. It was like super overpriced. I think I paid like 50 bucks for this, but it's an aluminum, like, I don't know, cast piece that's made for the Starlink dish. And what it does is replaces the little kickstand that it comes with. And that's the RV mount for Starlink. And then this piece here is made to go between the bars up on my roof in front of the max fan between the solar panels. And of course it's all TIG welded, and you know. We also got the winch mounted. I'll show you the troubles that I was having with that winch and why I couldn't mount it myself. Some jerk parked his Buick like right here, so I don't have a whole lot of room. But the problem I had is this bumper is a concealed winch mount. The winch is, you know, back there inside the bumper. A lot of vehicles, they're like up top, on top of the bumper or in the front. And the problem I had is this contactor box, this electrical box, which is what you plug the controller for the winch into, was crashing into the top bar of this bumper. And I needed to relocate this box basically. So we took it off the winch, and there was really nowhere else good to put it, because you need this kind of accessible to be able to hook up your remote to and stuff. Plus it says Warn on it in a big decal, and you know, you got to let people know that you have a real Warn winch, not a Harbor Freight. So what Tom did is, it's funny, we were just looking around his shop for trash to make a bracket out of, and that turned into a freaking precision aluminum custom piece that's machined to within a few thousandths of an inch and TIG welded. But we relocated the contactor box so it just sits above the bumper right up here. So all I have left to do with this is, we took the cable out because it wasn't wound up nice anyway, and I need to hook the battery cables for this up to my bus bars under the hood. I'm gonna put new ends on them because they were just kind of dirty, and then just spool up the cable, and then the winch is done. So the first thing I'm gonna do today before I get started on the rest of these things is, I have some extra carpet here for my cab, and I'm gonna cut just like a floor mat for the driver's side, basically like a sacrificial piece for me to get all dirty and trashed, so the carpet underneath stays nice and clean. You know, I have this, so I'm gonna just use it instead of spending money on a rubber floor mat for a car that I would just cut up anyway. So that's what I got. That's what I got going on. So I got the winch cables ran up here to over by the battery. The ends on them, they're just dirty, you know, they've seen some action. This is a used winch. I bought it from Tom. And I'm gonna put new ends on them and put them on my bus bars. I don't have an open spot, like an open stud for them, so I'll just stack them on top of something else, probably my DC to DC charger or something, like on the end here. Can't tell if the camera's picking any of this up. The lighting is like It's mid-afternoon. The sun's kind of right on everything, but so yeah, I'm just explaining what I'm doing. There's really not much to see here, and I might shorten these up a little bit because, you know, they're kind of long. Alright, I did have an extra ground, but I had to stack the positive, so I did it right here. Not ideal, but it's extremely tight. I'm going to go ahead and do a paint line on it, and I'm going to have to modify, cut a piece of this cover off to make that work, but that's done. And naturally I had to remove the battery to, you know, do all this, but quite a bit going on here. A lot of electrical in this van. Alright, so Starlink goes right here. It's a tight fit. I'm using riv nuts in the frame and stainless 5/16 bolts. That ain't going nowhere. Alright, now before I can install the dish, I need to run the cable up to it, and that is going to come out of this little weatherhead here, which really don't have the room for it. I'm going to have to drill a hole in it somewhere, maybe in the side or something, but I'm about to figure that out now. Basically drill a hole and silicone the crap out of it when I'm done with black RTV, not silicone like you're thinking, or quad, but I think I'm almost out of quad. So that's what I got. And then there's this tiny little bit of conduit there, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that through there, because it has a like Ethernet on the end of it. So what we got here is like Ethernet, but also has a kind of a gasket on it, a seal. And I didn't really think this through all that great with my little conduit idea here. That's definitely not gonna fit. So I might have to try and go under the ceiling panel to get it to the location that it needs to get to over here. There's plenty of room on that weatherhead though, so I'm not really worried about that at all. but yeah, this is challenging unexpectedly. I also don't want to destroy the end of this either. I have Ethernet crimps, but I'd like to keep the seal in good shape, because it's going to be up there forever in the elements, you know. Got a pretty decent amount of glue on this ceiling panel up here. I'm going to see if I can get it down just enough to get the Starlink cable from there to there. And hopefully not have a saggy ceiling after that. Yeah, it's not, this isn't going great. See, I didn't design this with intentions to ever take it back apart. I can say that about lots of parts of this van. Okay, so before I put the ceiling back together, I'm gonna get it up and to the location. I'm gonna unplug one of these because it's sunny before I, proceed. Figure out where I guess it doesn't matter which one I unplug. There's the positive under here. Of course, I got them zip tied up pretty damn good. I'm not gonna unplug it. Changed my mind. I'm just gonna try to not drill through the wire. That would be pretty bad. 38 volts at 800 watts, or, whatever it's putting out at the moment. Alright, I need this guy. See, with this I just used nothing but butyl tape and it's been perfect. I will, of course, put new butyl tape now. Oh no, my grommet came out of the ceiling. We don't want our solar wire getting cut by aluminum roof. That would be bad. That would be not great. Okay, had some interruptions there, but I'm back. I decided I am gonna unhook it here. I'm gonna disconnect the positive. I do not want to blow a fuse or get electrocuted. The front and rear panels are secured in each corner, so if I just undo this side, I should have enough movement to be able to lift it up enough to access that plug that's just right there, but I can't get my fingers under it. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, we're unhooked. Yeah. So, now, I want to come out this side here. So, and I need to get this grommet to sit a little better. Not staying where it belongs. Really doesn't have enough of a groove cut into it. Should have just used a frickin' make my own damn grommet. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, yep, it just keeps, alright, whatever. Right here. And just plow a hole in this thing. I just grabbed 2 random drill bits, but I'm pretty sure this is a 1/2 inch. Yep. Which is as big as I can go on this drill. I do have a 9/16 bit with the 1/2 inch shank. Oof. Careful. Careful now. Okay, that should be big enough. Clean up in aisle 3. I'm gonna have to go like way bigger with the hole because of this. I don't want to go any bigger though. So I'm gonna have to silicone the shit out of this. Can it just... Damn you, Elon. Careful with my wires here. There we go. All right. Okay. Okay. So the cable, I'm gonna go, I think, right there, and then get into that. Yep, sure. Make sure it's clean. No cat hair to mess up my signal. Oh yeah. The mount came with this little screw, and now I'm wondering if I can even get to it at this point. Take this little screw and this ball head 3mm Allen that they give you, and you're supposed to tighten this thing so the dish, they like locks it in, you know. I'm balanced on top of this 6-foot ladder and I'm wearing flip-flops. Oh, they give you 2 of them. Okay. So, see if I can thread them in with my fingers first. I'm not making any OSHA jokes. So remember what happened last time. I lost half of my thumb. Ooh, careful. Solar panel. Tightening these screws up. And hopefully my Starlink never flies off. Yeah, so the max fan is definitely the tallest point of the van roof, the roof. So I'm gonna measure from the ground up to that, with it up, and then I'll know my maximum height. I wasn't sure how proud the Starlink would sit on this thing, but I like it. It's kind of low pro. Okay. Okay, now I can route the cable, get it zip tied up all good, and resecure that with butyl tape and black RTV. Yeah, see. Alright, we're all buttoned up here. I ran the wire as neat as I could, just zip tied everywhere. And then I got this put back with new butyl tape, and then I used Permatex Ultra Black, the actual engine gasket maker, and lots of it. Pretty much encased the wire in that, so hopefully if that cures right and doesn't have any holes in it, that should never leak. And I didn't even bother trimming the butyl tape. I just, I learned that's what you do with RVs. You just kind of goop everything up all sloppy on the roof, and that's kind of just the... Oh wow, I just realized might have to get that off of there. So yeah, this is all done. I'm gonna call this the Anthony array, because the guy that bought that for me. I'm gonna go put my ceiling back together and get the wire all ran neatly inside the van, and then I can set up an account and activate Starlink and pay Elon. That's my setup for cleaning my solar panels that I'm keeping in the back of the van. It's a broom handle and a gas station squeegee thing. I mean, I'm not saying that I got that from a gas station. It's just similar, Alright, my ceiling's all back together. These are my kitties. That's Kitty Poops, rest in peace. Then there's Peach, Little Pickles Jr. He lives with my friend Tom now. And here's what I did with the 700 feet of extra wire. I just it's there now. I'm 9 foot 7 inches tall. I mean, I'm 5'9", but the van is 9 foot 7. Organizing my cabinets here, I discovered that the floor was a little bit wet. I pulled my drawer out and could see and I traced that up and figured out that right here it's leaking. So I need to take this clamp and that clamp off, get this shut off out of here and reseal this, make sure that this fitting here isn't cracked, and then reinstall all of this with new Teflon tape. All right, I got it out. It had a bunch of pressure in it for some reason. Just hydrological expansion, I suppose. So I'm gonna check everything for cracks and then just reassemble it with new Teflon. Not sure why it was leaking, but all of these nylon or whatever they are fittings that I used are notorious for cracking. I don't see anything going on with this one though. Just needed more Teflon. Yeah, it's pretty thin there, so, you know, I guess. Part of what I need to do before I leave is make a comprehensive toolkit for my van with everything I would need to fix the plumbing, the electrical, the mechanical, the carpentry, you name it. Like, I need to have all the tools and little things like this with me so I can make repairs. I mean, I don't need to bring the kitchen sink. Well, I have a sink, but I mean, I can always go to like a Walmart or a hardware store somewhere and get whatever, but I want to have at least the ability to make repairs with me, you know. So the fitting looks fine. I'm just putting more Teflon on it and I'm gonna try this again. And we shall see. The van build is done. My brother's here in town from Canada. He came down to take care of some business with me before I depart and hit the road. And last night we got all the cameras installed and configured. The network's all wired up and running, and I'm connected to Starlink. So that's it. That was the last thing on the list. This van is built. So thank you so much to everyone for watching this build and following along with me from the beginning. I appreciate it. I'll do a full van tour, like a van build recap and overview, and kind of show it all to you guys in another video. And I'm also going to do kind of a discussion of what it cost and like alternatives I'll discuss, like things that I did that you guys could do differently if you were interested in building one of these, or you know, just different ways to approach something like this. This has been like 14 months I've been building this van, and it has been a huge challenge for me. It's been a marathon. I kind of like put myself through a lot to do this, and there's been some tough times where I've kind of second guessed my decisions on doing this whole project in general. Like, why am I putting myself through all of this? I should have just bought some vehicle and threw my crap in it and hit the road a long time ago. It's over 3 years ago I decided that I wanted to become a full-time nomad, and you know, finally the moment is here. But I'm glad I did this. I now have a vehicle that it's my home, and I have everything I'll ever need in one little home on wheels. You know, this is kind of a reflection of my personality, because I built this van to you know, my vision of what I wanted it to be. And yeah, it's a little excessive on some levels, but at the same time it's just, you know, it's my way of doing it. So yeah, I put myself into debt to do this. I took out 2 credit cards and spent over $20,000 at least to build this van. And I do have a ledger that I've been keeping this whole time, so I am gonna eventually sit down and make a video about what everything cost, and a realistic, let you know like what it realistically would cost you to do something like this. But you know, and working full-time like for the majority of the time that I've been building this van, and then documenting the whole process on YouTube, which, you know, that's like having a full-time job in its own. So I've put myself through quite a bit to get to where I am today, and hasn't really sunk in yet, but the day after tomorrow, I'm hitting the road in this van with my 2 cats and everything I own. So I hope you guys follow along and continue to tune in every week and see me out there living my life in this van, and you know, just check in on me and see what I'm up to. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I appreciate all of you, and stay tuned. Tune in next week to see where I end up in this thing.